The telegram arrived on a Tuesday morning in April of 1884, and Benjamin Vance held it in his weathered hands like it might explode, reading the words over and over until they blurred. Uncle Richard deceased. You inherit equal partnership Crescent Moon Ranch, Montana Territory. Arrive soonest. Attorney Morrison. Benjamin stood on the dusty platform of the Denver station, travelers rushing past him in both directions, but he remained still as stone. Uncle Richard was dead, the man who had taught him to ride, to rope, to read the land like a book, gone. Benjamin had not seen his uncle in 6 years, not since he had left Montana at 20 to seek his fortune in the Colorado mines. That fortune had never materialized. Instead, he had spent those years breaking his back in dark tunnels, saving every penny, dreaming of the day he might own land of his own. Now he owned half a ranch. The question was, who owned the other half? The journey north took 3 days by rail and another day by stagecoach. Benjamin watched the landscape change from Colorado's rugged peaks to Montana's rolling grasslands, his heart clenching with a mixture of grief and homecoming. He had forgotten how big the sky was here, how it stretched endlessly in every direction like an ocean of blue. The town of Gunnison, Montana Territory, looked exactly as he remembered, a collection of weathered buildings clustered along a single main street, mountains rising in the purple distance. The stagecoach deposited him outside the general store, and Benjamin grabbed his worn carpetbag, breathing in the familiar scent of dust and pine. Benjamin Vance. A portly man in a suit approached, hand extended. Ezekiel Morrison. I handled your uncle's affairs. Benjamin shook his hand. Thank you for the telegram. I came as soon as I could. Let us speak in my office. Morrison gestured toward a building across the street. There are details we need to discuss. The attorney's office smelled of leather and tobacco. Morrison settled behind his desk and pulled out a thick folder. Your uncle passed peacefully in his sleep 3 weeks ago. Heart gave out. He was 68. He was a good man, Benjamin said quietly. Indeed. He left his affairs in perfect order, as was his way. The Crescent Moon Ranch passes equally to you and Miss Hope Rowland. The name hit Benjamin like a physical blow. Hope Rowland. 6 years vanished in an instant, and he was 20 again, watching her from across the Sunday church service, too tongue-tied to speak. Hope, with her sunset-colored hair and eyes like mountain lakes, quick to laugh and quicker to anger. Hope, who could ride better than half the men in the territory and had a mind as sharp as any Benjamin had ever encountered. Hope, who had been his uncle's ward after her parents died of influenza when she was 16. Miss Rowland. Benjamin managed to keep his voice steady. I knew she lived with my uncle, but I did not realize he had made her an equal heir. Morrison nodded. Your uncle raised her these past 8 years. She has run the ranch operations for the last 2 years, essentially. Richard trusted her completely. The will is ironclad. 50% to you, 50% to her. Benjamin's mind raced. Hope would be 24 now, same as him. A woman grown and, according to Morrison, running a ranch. Does she know about the arrangement? She does. I informed her immediately. She said, and I quote, that she would wait to meet you before forming an opinion on the matter. Morrison's lips twitched with amusement. Miss Rowland is not known for mincing words. That sounded like the Hope he remembered. Benjamin stood. Then I should not keep her waiting. How do I reach the ranch? I have a horse ready for you at the livery. It is an hour's ride north. Follow the river road. Morrison stood as well. Mr. Vance, I will be frank. The ranch is doing well, but it requires constant work. Miss Rowland has managed admirably, but she needs a partner, not a burden. Your uncle believed you were up to the task. I hope he was correct. The words stung, but Benjamin knew they were fair. He had left Montana Territory a boy seeking adventure. He was returning a man, hardened by labor and loss, but untested in the life he was inheriting. I will not let my uncle's memory down. The horse Morrison had arranged was a good one, a sturdy bay gelding with intelligent eyes. Benjamin rode north as the afternoon sun slanted golden across the valley, his heart pounding harder with each mile. The river road was familiar despite the years, cottonwoods lining the water, meadowlarks singing from the fence posts. When he crested the final rise and saw the crescent moon spread below him, he had to stop and just look. The ranch was bigger than he remembered. The main house stood solid and well kept, logs chinked against the Montana winters, a wide porch wrapping around three sides. Outbuildings dotted the landscape. A massive barn, corrals, a bunkhouse, storage sheds. Cattle grazed across the green pastures, hundreds of them, sleek and healthy. Someone had planted apple trees along the south fence, their blossoms white against the spring sky. Someone he knew was Hope. Benjamin rode down the slope, his pulse quickening. 3 ranch hands looked up from their work at the corral, their faces curious. He nodded to them and continued toward the house, dismounting at the hitching rail. Before he could knock, the door swung open. There she stood. 6 years had transformed Hope Rowland from a pretty girl into a stunning woman. She wore practical clothes, a simple cotton dress covered by a leather vest, her auburn hair pulled back in a practical braid. But it was her face that stopped Benjamin's breath. She had grown into the promise of her youth, all high cheekbones and determined jaw, those incredible eyes assessing him with frank appraisal. "Benjamin Vance," she said. Her voice was lower than he remembered, rich and sure. "You have grown up." "So have you," he managed, then felt foolish. "I mean, it is good to see you, Hope. I am sorry it is under such circumstances." Her expression softened slightly. "Richard spoke of you often. Come inside. You must be tired from your journey." The house interior was warm and welcoming, nothing like the bachelor quarters he had expected. Curtains framed the windows, rugs covered the plank floors, and the smell of fresh bread filled the air. Hope led him to the kitchen, gesturing for him to sit at the large wooden table. "Coffee?" she asked, already pouring. "Thank you." Benjamin watched her move around the kitchen with easy familiarity. This was her home, he realized. She had made it so. "Morrison told me you have been running the ranch." "Someone had to. Your uncle's health started failing 2 years ago. Nothing dramatic, just age catching up. He taught me everything, trusted me to make decisions." She set the coffee in front of him and sat down across the table, her gaze direct. "I loved him. He gave me a home when I had none, treated me like a daughter. I would have cared for him regardless of any inheritance." "I did not mean to suggest otherwise," Benjamin said quickly. "I know what kind of man my uncle was. If he trusted you, that is enough for me." Hope studied him for a long moment. "You left 6 years ago. You could have visited, written more than twice a year. Now you are back because you inherited half a ranch. Forgive me if I am not immediately welcoming." The accusation was deserved. Benjamin set down his coffee cup. "You are right. I left because I was young and foolish, thought I would make my fortune in the mines, return a success. Instead, I barely survived. I was ashamed to come back with nothing. I know that sounds weak." "It sounds human," Hope said quietly. "Richard never stopped believing in you. He said you had good bones, just needed to find your spine." That sounded exactly like something his uncle would say. Benjamin felt his throat tighten. "I wish I could have seen him one last time." He went peacefully. In his sleep in his own bed, he had a good life. Hope stood, her briskness returning. "You must be hungry. I will heat up some stew. Then I will show you the operation, and we can discuss how this partnership will work." Over dinner, Hope laid out the ranch's situation with the precision of a battlefield general. They ran 500 head of cattle, supplied beef to the mining camps and the railroad. They had 12 permanent hands, doubled during roundup and branding season. The ranch turned a profit, not huge but steady. They had contracts, debts, plans for expansion. "I know every inch of this land, every animal, every hand," Hope said. "I know the water rights, the grazing schedules, the breeding records. I can birth a calf, break a horse, fix a fence, and balance the books." "What can you do?" Benjamin met her challenging gaze. "I can work. I can learn. I can pull my weight. I spent 6 years in the mines, Hope. I know what hard labor is. I know what it is to be cold, hungry, and exhausted. I am not afraid of any of that. The mines are not a ranch. No, but they taught me to endure. They taught me to plan, to be careful, to spot trouble before it arrives. And before the mines, I grew up here. I know cattle, horses, the land. It has been years, but it will come back." Hope leaned back in her chair, studying him. "Morrison said the will is clear. We are equal partners. That means equal say in decisions. It does. I will not be sidelined because I am a woman. I will not smile and nod while you run things into the ground through ignorance or pride. I would not expect you to." Benjamin leaned forward. "Hope, I know I am the outsider here. You have been doing this for 2 years. I am not here to take over. I am here to learn and help. If we are partners, then we are partners. Equal means equal." Something in her expression shifted, a slight relaxation of her shoulders. "All right then. Tomorrow we start early. I will introduce you to the hands, show you the operation, and we will see if you can keep up." "I will keep up," Benjamin promised. Hope stood, gathering the dishes. "Your old room is ready. Upstairs, second door on the right. We rise at 5. Benjamin rose as well. "Hope, thank you for taking care of him, for taking care of all of this." For the first time, she smiled at him, a real smile that transformed her face. He was family. This is home. What else would I have done? That night, lying in his childhood bed, Benjamin stared at the ceiling and tried to process the whirlwind of the day. He was a rancher now, owner of land and cattle, partner to the woman he had admired from afar for as long as he could remember. That old longing, the one he had thought buried beneath 6 years of hard living, stirred in his chest. Hope was even more remarkable than he remembered, fierce and capable and beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with mere features. But she saw him as an outsider, a potential burden. He would have to prove himself worthy of the partnership before he could even think of anything more. The thought was daunting and exhilarating in equal measure. Sleep, when it finally came, was deep and dreamless. Benjamin woke to the sound of someone moving around downstairs and the smell of coffee. The sky outside his window was still dark, stars fading but dawn not yet arrived. He dressed quickly in his work clothes and headed down to find Hope already in the kitchen, efficiently preparing breakfast. "Good, you are up," she said without turning around. "Eat quickly. The hands will be gathering in 15 minutes." Breakfast was simple but substantial. Eggs, bacon, biscuits, and strong black coffee. They ate in companionable silence, and Benjamin found himself studying Hope in the lamplight. She moved with such confidence, such purpose. This was a woman who knew exactly who she was and what she was capable of. Outside, the ranch was coming to life. Lanterns bobbed in the pre-dawn darkness as men headed to the barn. Hope led Benjamin to the bunkhouse, where the hands were gathering for their morning assignments. "Listen up," Hope called, her voice carrying easily. The men quieted immediately. "This is Benjamin Vance, Richard's nephew. He is my partner now, equal owner of the Crescent Moon. You will give him the same respect you gave Richard and the same cooperation you give me. Benjamin, these are your men." She introduced them one by one. Caleb, the foreman, a weathered man in his 50s with kind eyes and capable hands. Young Tommy, barely 18, eager and hardworking. Miguel and Carlos, brothers from New Mexico, expert ropers. Old Pete, the best tracker in 3 counties. The names and faces came fast, but Benjamin committed them to memory. "Pleasure to meet you all," Benjamin said. "I am here to work and learn. I know my partner here has been running things well. I am not looking to change what works." Caleb nodded approvingly. "Good to have you, Mr. Vance. Your uncle spoke highly of you. Please, call me Benjamin." The day that followed was a blur of activity. Hope took him through every aspect of the ranch operations with military efficiency. They checked the cattle in the near pastures, inspected fences that needed repair, reviewed the breeding stock, examined the hay stores. Hope explained the rotation schedule, the water rights agreements with neighboring ranches, the contracts with buyers. She also put him to work. By noon, Benjamin had repaired 2 sections of fence, helped move a small herd to fresh pasture, and assisted with shoeing a fractious mare. His hands, softened by 3 days of travel, were already forming blisters. His back ached from unaccustomed work. But he pushed through, determined not to show weakness. Hope noticed anyway. "Take a break," she said as they stopped by the creek to water the horses. "You will be no good to me if you collapse." Benjamin wanted to protest but knew she was right. He dismounted, flexing his sore hands. "It has been a while since I did this kind of work. It shows." But her tone was not unkind. "You are pushing yourself hard. I have to prove I belong here." Hope was silent for a moment, watching the water flow over the rocks. Richard used to say that a man proves himself through steady work, not grand gestures. You do not have to kill yourself on your first day. I am not trying to kill myself. I am trying to show you I am serious. She turned to look at him, those remarkable eyes searching his face. "I can see that. But we are partners for the long term, Benjamin. This is not a race. It is a marathon." The word partners made something warm bloom in Benjamin's chest. "Fair enough. I will try to pace myself." They sat by the creek for a few minutes, the silence comfortable. Benjamin found himself acutely aware of Hope's presence beside him, the way the sun caught in her auburn hair, the capable strength in her hands as she held her horse's reins. She smelled of leather and sage and something floral he could not identify. "Why did you really come back?" Hope asked suddenly. "You could have sold me your half, taken the money, started fresh somewhere else." Benjamin considered the question. He could give her the easy answer, the practical one. Instead, he chose honesty. "Because this is home. I did not realize how much I missed it until I got the telegram. And because my uncle trusted me with something he loved, I could not walk away from that." Hope nodded slowly. "Good answer." The days fell into a rhythm. Benjamin rose before dawn, worked alongside the hands, learned everything Hope could teach him. His body adapted to the labor, muscles hardening, hands callousing. The ranch's routines became familiar again. The smell of the barn, the sound of cattle lowing, the endless cycle of mending and building and tending. Hope was a demanding teacher, but a fair one. She corrected his mistakes without condescension, praised his progress when warranted, and gradually began to trust him with more responsibility. They worked side by side, often in companionable silence, developing the kind of wordless communication that came from shared purpose. Benjamin was falling more in love with her every day. It was not just her beauty, though that was undeniable. It was her competence, her fierce dedication, the way she could gentle a spooked horse with soft words while cursing out a lazy hand in the next breath. It was watching her calculate breeding schedules in her neat handwriting, seeing her face light up when a new calf stood on wobbly legs, hearing her laugh at old Pete's terrible jokes. She fit into the ranch the way water fit into a riverbed, so naturally it seemed impossible to imagine one without the other. And Benjamin fit nowhere near as easily, still finding his footing, still proving himself day by day. A month after his arrival, disaster struck. Benjamin woke in the middle of the night to shouting and the smell of smoke. He bolted from his bed, pulling on his pants as he ran. Through his window he could see flames licking up the side of the barn. Hope was already outside in her nightdress and boots, organizing the hands. Benjamin, help Caleb with the horses. Miguel, Carlos, get the cattle away from the barn. Tommy, start a bucket line from the creek. Benjamin ran to the barn where Caleb was already leading out terrified horses. The smoke was thick, the heat intense. Inside, horses screamed in panic. Benjamin grabbed a rope, soaked it in the water trough, and wrapped it around his face. Then he plunged into the smoke-filled barn. The next hour was chaos. Benjamin and Caleb pulled out horse after horse, leading them to the far corral. The flames were spreading despite the bucket line's efforts. Benjamin's eyes burned, his lungs ached, but he kept going back. One more horse. One more. One more. He was leading out the last mare when a burning beam cracked overhead. Benjamin looked up, saw it falling, knew he could not get clear in time. Then something slammed into him from the side, knocking him out of the way. He hit the ground hard, the mare's reins torn from his hands, and looked up to see Hope sprawled beside him as the beam crashed down where he had been standing. Out. Now. Hope grabbed his arm, hauling him to his feet. They stumbled out of the barn together just as part of the roof collapsed in a shower of sparks. Outside, safe in the cool night air, Benjamin bent double, coughing. Hope was beside him, doing the same. When he could breathe again, he looked at her. Her nightdress was filthy with soot, her face streaked with ash and sweat, her eyes red from smoke. "You saved my life," he said. "You would have done the same." She straightened, assessing the situation. The barn was a loss, but they had saved all the animals and kept the fire from spreading to other structures. "Caleb, how are the horses?" "All accounted for, Miss Hope. A few burns, nothing serious." The hands worked until dawn, dousing every last ember, moving the saved equipment and feed to other buildings. As the sun rose over the smoking ruins, the full extent of the damage became clear. The barn was completely destroyed, along with most of their stored hay and several pieces of equipment. Hope stood looking at the wreckage, her jaw set. Benjamin came to stand beside her. "We will rebuild," he said. "With what money? That hay was for the summer. The barn alone will cost a fortune to replace. We have insurance, don't we? Some, not enough." Hope turned away from the ruins. "I need to think, make a plan." She walked toward the house, her shoulders rigid with stress. Benjamin wanted to follow, to comfort her, but he knew she needed space. Instead, he turned to helping the hands settle the displaced animals and salvage what could be saved from the burned barn. By mid-morning, Hope emerged from the house with papers and pencils. She gathered Benjamin and Caleb in the kitchen and spread out her calculations. "Here is what we have. Here is what we need. Here is what the insurance will cover. We are short by about $800. Benjamin studied the figures. "What if we sold some cattle early, took a smaller profit but got the cash now? Prices are low right now. We would lose money." Hope tapped her pencil against the table. "What we need is a big contract, something that would bring in enough to cover the costs." Caleb cleared his throat. "I heard the railroad is looking for beef. Big order for the crews laying new track toward Helena, but the contract goes to whoever can deliver first." Hope's eyes lit up. "How big an order?" 200 head. "Premium price if delivered within the month." "We could do it," Benjamin said. "We have the cattle. The question is whether we can round them up and drive them fast enough." Hope stood, pacing. It would require taking most of the hands, leaving the ranch minimally staffed. It is risky. Staying here with no barn and no hay is also risky, Benjamin pointed out. She stopped, looking at him. You are right. Caleb, find out the details of that railroad contract. Benjamin, calculate how many hands we can spare. I will plan the drive route. The next week was a flurry of preparation. Hope rode into town and secured the railroad contract, beating out 2 other ranchers by sheer force of will and a reputation for delivering quality beef. Caleb selected the best cattle for the drive. Benjamin organized supplies and equipment. They would leave in 3 days, Hope and Benjamin leading the drive with 8 of the hands. Old Pete and 2 others would stay behind to mind the ranch. It would be Benjamin's first cattle drive and his first real test as Hope's partner. The night before they left, Hope found Benjamin in the barn where he was checking saddles and tack. "Are you ready for this?" she asked. "I am ready to try." He looked up from the saddle he was oiling. "Are you worried I will slow you down?" "A little," she admitted. "But I am more worried about the weather. Spring storms can turn ugly fast, and the route to the railroad camp crosses some rough country." Benjamin set down the saddle and stood. "We will manage, together." Hope met his eyes, and for a moment something passed between them, a connection that made Benjamin's breath catch. Then she looked away. "Get some sleep. We leave at first light." The drive began smoothly. They moved the 200 head north through familiar territory, the cattle docile, the weather fair. Hope rode at the front with Benjamin, Caleb bringing up the rear, the other hands working the flanks. The landscape rolled past, endless grass and sky, mountains purple in the distance. Benjamin found his rhythm quickly, the old skills returning. Hope watched him with approval, and pride swelled in his chest. He was proving himself, showing her he belonged here. On the 3rd day, the weather turned. Dark clouds rolled in from the west, and the temperature dropped. Hope studied the sky with a frown. "Storm coming. We need to find shelter." There was a canyon ahead, Caleb said, with good rock walls to break the wind. They pushed the herd faster, reaching the canyon just as the first drops fell. But this was no gentle spring rain. Within minutes, it became a deluge, rain sheeting down so hard they could barely see. Lightning cracked across the sky, and the cattle spooked. 200 head of panicked beef surged forward, threatening to stampede. Hope was already riding into the chaos, her voice cutting through the storm. "Hold them. Don't let them scatter." Benjamin spurred his horse forward, joining the hands in trying to contain the stampede. It was terrifying and exhilarating, rain pelting his face, lightning illuminating everything in stark flashes, the thunder of hooves drowning out everything else. He stayed near Hope, watching her work with awe. She was fearless, her horse dancing through the herd, her rope swinging to turn the leaders. Gradually, through sheer skill and determination, they contained the panic. The herd settled into an uneasy mill, still frightened but no longer stampeding. The rain continued for hours, turning the ground to mud, soaking everyone to the skin. When the storm finally passed, they took stock. Most of the herd was intact, but about 20 head had broken away. Miguel and Carlos volunteered to search for them. Everyone was exhausted, cold, and miserable. "We will camp here tonight," Hope decided. "Dry out, rest, find the strays in the morning." The men set up a makeshift camp in a sheltered area of the canyon. Benjamin helped build a fire, coaxing wet wood into reluctant flames. Hope stood nearby, wringing out her hat, her clothes plastered to her body. She was shivering. "You need to get warm," Benjamin said. "So do you." "I am serious, Hope. You are shaking." "I am fine." But her teeth were chattering. Benjamin made a decision. He pulled his bedroll from his saddle and spread it near the fire. Then he took Hope's arm and guided her to sit. "Sit. Warm up." That is an order from your partner." She looked up at him, surprised, then too tired to argue. She sat and Benjamin wrapped a dry blanket around her shoulders. He poured her coffee from the pot Caleb had set on the fire, pressing the hot cup into her hands. "Thank you," she said quietly. Benjamin sat beside her, close enough to share warmth. "You were incredible today. The way you handled that stampede. I was terrified." She sipped the coffee, color slowly returning to her face. "I kept thinking if we lose the herd, we lose everything. But we did not lose them, because of you." Hope looked at him, and in her eyes he saw exhaustion and fear and something else, something softer. "Because of us. You were right there with me." They sat in silence, watching the fire. The other hands were settling in, the storm-weary cattle quiet now. Benjamin was acutely aware of Hope beside him, the slight pressure where her shoulder brushed his, the smell of rain and smoke in her hair. "Benjamin," she said, so softly he almost missed it. "I am glad you came back." His heart stuttered. "So am I." The moment stretched between them, fragile and precious. Then Caleb called out about the evening meal and the spell broke, but something had shifted, some wall between them cracking. They found the missing cattle the next morning and pushed on. The railroad camp was still a week away, but the herd was intact and the weather improved. Benjamin and Hope rode side by side, talking more than they had before. She told him about the years after he left, how Richard had taught her everything he knew, how the ranch hands had been skeptical at first but came to respect her. He told her about the mines, the darkness and danger, the friends he had made and lost. "Why did you stay so long?" she asked. "If it was so terrible," pride mostly. "I did not want to admit I had failed, and the money was decent when we hit a good vein. I kept thinking, just a little longer, just a little more, and I will have enough." He shook his head. "I wasted 6 years chasing something that was never there. You are here now, that is what matters." The simple acceptance in her words warmed him more than the sun. "Hope, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you never marry? You must have had offers." She was quiet for a long moment. "I had offers, none that interested me. Most men could not handle a woman who knew her own mind. They wanted someone decorative and obedient. I am neither." "You are wrong about the first part. You are beautiful, Hope." She looked at him, startled. "Benjamin, I am sorry if that was too forward, but it is true." Color rose in her cheeks, visible even under her tan. "Thank you," she said softly. Then, more briskly, "We should check the herd spacing. They are bunching too tight." Benjamin let her change the subject, but he saw the way she kept glancing at him throughout the day, a new awareness in her eyes. The air between them felt charged, full of possibility. They reached the railroad camp on schedule, the cattle in good condition despite the storm. The railroad foreman was impressed, paying the agreed price without haggling. Hope counted the money twice, her smile brilliant. "We did it," she said to Benjamin as they prepared for the journey home. "This will cover the barn and then some. We make a good team. We do." She held his gaze, and there was no mistaking the warmth in her expression now. "Benjamin, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "When you first arrived, I was resentful. I thought you would try to take over, push me aside. I was wrong. You have been a true partner in every sense. I could not have done this without you. Hope, I am the one who should be thanking you. You gave me a chance when you could have made things difficult. You taught me, trusted me." They were standing close, the sunset painting the sky gold and red behind them. The camp was distant, giving them privacy. Hope's eyes searched his face, and Benjamin saw his own longing reflected back at him. "I need to tell you something else," Hope said, her voice slightly unsteady. "I admired you back before you left. You probably never noticed. You never looked at me that way." Benjamin's heart was pounding. "I noticed. God, Hope, I noticed. But you were Richard's ward and I was nobody, barely scraping by. I thought I had nothing to offer you. And now I have half a ranch and 6 years of hard lessons. Still not much, but more than before." He took a breath, gathering courage. "Now I am standing here with the most remarkable woman I have ever known, and I am hoping she might feel something for me beyond partnership." Hope's lips curved into a smile that made her eyes shine. "I might. In fact, I definitely do." She stepped closer. "Benjamin Vance, I am falling in love with you. Have been for weeks now, maybe longer." Joy exploded through him. "Hope Rowland, I have been in love with you since I was 18 years old. Coming back here, working beside you, it has only made me more certain. You are everything I could ever want." "Then kiss me, you fool, before I change my mind." Benjamin cupped her face in his hands, marveling at the softness of her skin, the way she looked at him like he hung the stars. Then he kissed her, and the world fell away. There was only Hope, her lips warm and responsive, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. The kiss was everything he had imagined and more, sweet and fierce and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Hope laughed. "That was worth waiting for. We are doing that again, frequently. I would be disappointed if we did not." They kissed again, slower this time, learning each other. When they returned to camp hand in hand, Caleb took one look and grinned. "About damn time," he muttered, which made the other hands laugh. The journey home was transformed. Benjamin and Hope rode together, stealing kisses when they thought no one was looking, which was never, because the hands noticed everything and teased them mercilessly. But neither of them cared. The world was bright and new, full of possibility. Back at the Crescent Moon, they threw themselves into rebuilding. The insurance money combined with their earnings from the cattle drive gave them enough to construct a new barn, larger and better designed than the old one. Benjamin and Hope worked side by side, planning every detail, their partnership now deepened by love. The hands noticed the change in their employers and approved. Benjamin had proven himself through hard work and crisis. Hope was happier than they had ever seen her, her smiles coming more easily, her laughter more frequent. The ranch thrived under their combined leadership. 2 months after the cattle drive, on a warm July evening, Benjamin took Hope riding to a spot overlooking the valley. The sun was setting, painting the landscape in shades of gold and amber. They dismounted and Benjamin took both her hands. "Hope, I know we have not been courting long in the traditional sense, but I have loved you for 6 years, and these past months have only confirmed what I already knew. You are my partner in every way that matters. I cannot imagine my life without you in it." He pulled a small box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a simple gold band set with a small sapphire. "Will you marry me?" Hope's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "Yes. Yes. 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and she threw her arms around his neck, kissing him with all the passion and joy in her heart. They stood there as the sun set, wrapped in each other, their future bright before them. They were married in late August, a simple ceremony in Gunnison with the ranch hands and townsfolk in attendance. Hope wore a dress the color of cream, her auburn hair loose around her shoulders, and Benjamin thought she had never looked more beautiful. They exchanged vows under the big Montana sky, promising to love and honor each other all their days. The celebration afterward was joyous, with music and dancing and enough food to feed the county. Old Pete played fiddle, Tommy danced with every girl in attendance, and Caleb made a speech that had everyone laughing and crying in turns. As the evening wore on, Benjamin and Hope slipped away to the house they now truly shared. In the privacy of their bedroom, they came together with tenderness and passion, discovering each other in the most intimate way. Hope was everything Benjamin had dreamed of and more, generous and responsive, and utterly without shame. They loved each other through the night, learning what brought pleasure, what made the other gasp and sigh. Afterward, wrapped in each other's arms, Hope traced patterns on Benjamin's chest. "I never thought I could be this happy," she murmured. "Neither did I." He kissed the top of her head. "We are going to build something amazing together, Hope. Not just a ranch, but a life, a family. I would like that. Several children, I think, a house full of noise and laughter. Whatever you want, it is yours." The years that followed were full and rich. The ranch prospered under their joint management, growing larger and more profitable. They bought the adjoining property, expanding their range. They invested in breeding stock, improving their herd. The Crescent Moon became known throughout Montana Territory as one of the finest cattle operations in the region. But more than business success, Benjamin and Hope built a life together. Their first child, a son they named Richard after Benjamin's uncle, was born in the spring of 1886. He had his mother's auburn hair and his father's steady temperament. Benjamin held his son for the first time and wept, overwhelmed by love and gratitude. Hope proved to be as capable a mother as she was a rancher, managing both with her characteristic efficiency and warmth. She nursed Richard while reviewing breeding schedules, soothed him to sleep while planning the next cattle drive. Benjamin helped with everything, changing diapers and walking the floor with a colicky baby, marveling at the tiny life they had created. 2 years later, they welcomed a daughter, Lucy, who had her father's dark hair and her mother's fierce spirit. Then another son, James, quiet and thoughtful. The house filled with the sound of children, exactly as Hope had wanted. The ranch hands became family, especially Caleb, who took on the role of honorary grandfather. Old Pete taught the children to track animals. Miguel and Carlos let them help with the horses, patient with small hands and endless questions. The Crescent Moon was more than a business. It was a community, bound together by shared work and mutual affection. Benjamin and Hope's love deepened with time. They still worked side by side, running the ranch as equal partners, their respect and admiration for each other growing rather than fading. They had disagreements, of course, two strong-willed people managing a complex operation, but they learned to talk through problems, to compromise and support each other. At night, when the children were asleep and the day's work done, they sat together on the porch, watching the stars and planning the future. Sometimes they made love in their bedroom, the passion between them as strong as ever. Other times they simply held each other, finding comfort and peace in physical closeness. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Benjamin took Hope back to the overlook where he had proposed. Their children were with Caleb for the day, giving them rare time alone. They sat on the same rock, looking out over the valley that was their home. "You ever regret it?" Benjamin asked. "Tying yourself to a failed miner who showed up with nothing but a carpetbag?" Hope laughed. "Not even for a second. You gave me everything I wanted, Benjamin. A true partner, a family, a love that makes every day better than the last." She leaned against him. "Do you regret coming back?" "My only regret is not coming back sooner. I wasted 6 years when I could have been loving you. We have the rest of our lives to make up for it." They did make up for it. Through the 1890s, as Montana moved from territory to statehood, the Vance family grew and thrived. The children grew tall and strong, learning to ride and rope, to read and write, to love the land that was their heritage. Richard, the eldest, showed a natural talent for working with cattle. Lucy was fearless, able to outride most of the hands by the time she was 12. James had his father's patience and his mother's mind for numbers, keeping meticulous records of everything. Benjamin and Hope expanded the ranch carefully, always mindful of sustainability and the land's capacity. They treated their hands well, paying fair wages and providing good conditions, which meant they attracted the best workers and kept them. The Crescent Moon's reputation grew, not just for quality cattle but for ethical business practices. They faced challenges, of course. There were harsh winters that tested their endurance, summers of drought that required careful water management. There were injuries and illnesses, market fluctuations and difficult negotiations. But they faced everything together, drawing strength from each other and the life they had built. As the century turned, Benjamin and Hope found themselves in their late 30s, still vital and active, but conscious of time's passage. They had achieved more than Benjamin had ever dreamed when he received that telegram so many years ago. They had built not just a successful ranch, but a legacy. Their children were growing into remarkable young people. Richard, at 14, was already taking on significant responsibility in the ranch operations. Lucy, 12, could outshoot most men and had declared her intention to never marry unless she found someone who could keep up with her. James, 10, spent his free time with maps and surveys, dreaming of expansion and improvement. "We did good," Hope said one evening, watching their children argue good-naturedly about whose turn it was to feed the chickens. "We did," Benjamin agreed. He pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her. After 15 years, she still made his heart race. "I love you, Hope Vance, more today than yesterday, less than tomorrow." She turned in his arms, her eyes soft. "I love you too. You are my partner, my lover, my best friend. Everything I have, everything I am, I share with you." They kissed, a sweet reminder of all they meant to each other. The children groaned dramatically, which made them both laugh. Life continued its steady rhythm. Seasons turned, years passed. The children grew into adults with dreams of their own. Richard took over more and more of the ranch operations, showing himself to be a natural leader. Lucy surprised everyone by falling in love with a schoolteacher from Gunnison, a gentle man who adored her fierce spirit. James went to university to study agriculture and engineering, planning to return and modernize the ranch. Benjamin and Hope gradually stepped back, trusting the next generation while remaining available for advice and support. They had worked hard for decades. Now they allowed themselves to simply enjoy their life together. They traveled some, taking the train to Denver and San Francisco, seeing sights they had only read about. But they always returned to the Crescent Moon, to the land that was written in their bones. This was home, the place where their love had grown from seedling to mighty tree. On their 30th anniversary, their children and grandchildren, Richard had married and given them 2 grandchildren. Lucy had one, gathered for a celebration. The ranch was thriving under Richard's management. Lucy's family visited often, and James had implemented new irrigation and breeding techniques that had increased their yields significantly. As Benjamin looked around at the gathered family, at the children playing in the yard, at the ranch that had grown beyond his wildest dreams, he felt profound gratitude. He found Hope beside him, her hand slipping into his as naturally as breathing. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For loving me, for building this life with me, for being everything I needed." Hope's eyes, still as beautiful as the day he had returned to Montana, filled with tears. "You gave me the same. We gave each other the life we both needed." They danced that night under the stars, moving slowly to music only they could hear. Their bodies fit together perfectly, worn smooth by years of love and partnership. Around them, their family celebrated, but Benjamin and Hope existed in their own world, grateful and content. The years continued to pass gently. Benjamin and Hope grew old together, silver threading through their hair, their movements slower but their love undiminished. They spent their days in quiet routines, tending the garden Hope had planted, riding out to check the cattle though others did the work now, sitting on the porch watching sunsets. Their children were settled and successful. The grandchildren were growing, learning to love the ranch as their parents and grandparents had. The Crescent Moon would continue through the generations, a testament to what Benjamin and Hope had built together. When they were both in their 60s, Hope fell ill. It was nothing dramatic, just a slow weakening, her body finally succumbing to decades of hard work and harsh Montana winters. Benjamin tended her with devotion, bringing her meals, reading to her, lying beside her at night holding her hand. "I am not afraid," she told him on a quiet afternoon. "I have lived a full, wonderful life. I loved and was loved. I have no regrets." "I am not ready to lose you," Benjamin said, his voice breaking. "You will never lose me. I am in everything you see, everything you touch. In our children, our grandchildren, every fence post and blade of grass on this ranch. We built this together, Benjamin. It is our love made manifest." She recovered from that illness, but they both knew their time was growing shorter. They made the most of every day, finding joy in simple things. Watching the sunrise, hearing their grandchildren laugh, the feel of each other's hand. Benjamin went first, peacefully in his sleep at 68, the same age his Uncle Richard had been. Hope woke to find him beside her, his face peaceful, and though grief tore through her, she also felt a strange calm. He had lived a good life, a full life, loved until the very end. She arranged his burial on the ranch, under the cottonwoods near the river. The whole county came to pay respects to Benjamin Vance, who had returned to Montana with nothing and built an empire through hard work and love. Hope lived 2 more years without him, tended lovingly by her children and grandchildren. She remained sharp and engaged, still offering advice on ranch operations, still keeping her hand in the books. But everyone could see she was diminished without Benjamin, like a tree losing its supporting trunk. She passed quietly in her sleep on a spring morning when the apple trees were blooming, the ones she had planted so many decades ago. Her family buried her beside Benjamin, their graves marked with simple stones that read, "Benjamin Vance, 1860–1928, beloved husband, father, grandfather, and Hope Vance, 1860–1930, beloved wife, mother, grandmother, partner." But their real monument was the ranch itself, the Crescent Moon, which continued to thrive under their descendants' care. The story of how Benjamin Vance had inherited a partnership and found his true love was told and retold through the generations. An inspiration and reminder that sometimes life's greatest gifts come disguised as simple telegrams, that love can grow from partnership, and that 2 people working together can build something that outlasts them both. The Crescent Moon stood as testament to Benjamin and Hope's love, their work, their vision. Every fence they had mended, every cattle drive they had led, every decision they had made together was written into the land. Their children carried forward their values of hard work, ethical treatment, and love for the land. Their grandchildren and great-grandchildren walked the same paths, rode the same ranges, looked out over the same valleys. In the quiet moments when the wind whispered through the grass or a hawk circled overhead, those who knew the story swore they could feel Benjamin and Hope's presence, still watching over the ranch they had loved, still together in the land they had made their own. Their love story had become legend, proof that even in the harsh reality of the Wild West, true love could not only survive but flourish, creating legacies that echoed through time. The Crescent Moon remained in the Vance family for over a century, each generation adding their own chapter to the story, while honoring the foundation Benjamin and Hope had laid. And at the heart of it all was the simple truth that love, real love between true partners, could transform inheritance into home, strangers into soulmates, and a ranch into a testament to everything worth living for.